The ice clinked against the crystal glass as Marcus Wellington stood alone in his corner office on the 47th floor, watching the city below transform into a winter wonderland. Christmas Eve. Outside, families hurried through their laughter rising like smoke from the chestnuts roasting on corner carts. Inside, the silence was deafening. He was 52 years old, worth more than most people could earn in 10 lifetimes, and he had never felt more desperately, achingly alone. Marcus had everything the world told him to want. The penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, the private jet, the vacation homes in Aspen and the Hamptons. His tech company had revolutionized cloud computing, making him a household name in business circles. Forbes called him a visionary. Fortune praised his ruthless efficiency, but none of those magazines mentioned that he ate dinner alone every night at his desk, or that he couldn't remember the last time someone had called him just to say hello. The divorce had been finalized 3 years ago. Sarah had taken their daughter Emma to Seattle, and while he sent generous checks every month, the phone calls had grown increasingly rare. This Christmas, Emma was spending the holiday with her mother's new family, with a stepfather who attended her soccer games and remembered her friends' names. Marcus had been invited, of course, but the thought of being the outsider in what should have been his family was more than he could bear. He loosened his tie and looked at the empty office around him. His employees had rushed out hours ago, eager to reach their own celebrations. His assistant had left a small wrapped gift on his desk before leaving, probably something corporate and impersonal. He hadn't even opened it. The cleaning crew would arrive soon. Marcus grabbed his coat, deciding to walk home instead of calling his driver. Perhaps the cold would numb something more than just his fingers. The streets were alive with a joy that felt almost mocking. Carolers sang on the corner of Fifth Avenue. A Salvation Army volunteer rang his bell with determined cheerfulness. Marcus dropped a $100 bill into the red kettle without breaking stride, ignoring the volunteer's surprised thanks. Money was easy. It was everything else that seemed impossible. He was 3 blocks from his building when he saw her. She sat on the steps of a closed boutique, her thin jacket completely inadequate for the December chill. She couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair tucked under a worn knit cap and eyes that darted nervously at every passing stranger. Next to her sat a small duffel bag and a cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps." God bless. Marcus had walked past 1,000 people like her. New York was full of hard luck stories, and he'd learned long ago that you couldn't save everyone. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the way she was shivering, or the fact that she looked away when people passed, as if she was ashamed to be seen. Or maybe it was simply that on this particular night, her loneliness mirrored his own. "Excuse me," he said, his voice rougher than intended. She looked up, startled, her body tensing as if preparing to flee. "I'm not causing any trouble," she said quickly. "I'll move if the store owner complained. I just needed to rest for a minute." "No, that's not—" Marcus paused, suddenly unsure of what he was doing. "Have you eaten today?" Suspicion clouded her features. "Why?" "Because it's Christmas Eve. And there's a diner 2 blocks from here that makes the best pie in Manhattan. And He trailed off, then finished honestly. "I don't want to eat alone." She studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable, as if she could see through his expensive coat to whatever broken thing lived inside him. Finally, she spoke. "If this is some kind of weird thing, I'm not interested." "It's not. I promise. Just dinner. You can leave whenever you want." He gestured down the street. "The diner's called Mickey's. It's been there for 40 years. We can sit by the window if it makes you feel safer." Another long moment passed. Then she slowly stood, wincing as if her muscles ached from sitting in the cold. "Okay, but I'm keeping my bag with me." "Of course." They walked in silence, an odd pair that drew curious glances. Marcus in his tailored wool coat and Italian leather shoes. Her in clothes that had seen too many winters and not enough washing machines. He held the diner door open, and warm air rushed out to greet them, carrying the scent of coffee and frying onions. The place was nearly empty. A tired waitress looked up from wiping down tables, her expression softening when she saw them. "Sit anywhere, hun," she called out. They chose a booth by the window. Marcus ordered coffee and turkey dinner. The young woman, who finally introduced herself as Sophie, asked for the same, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you been on the streets?" Marcus asked, then immediately regretted the directness of the question. But Sophie didn't seem offended. 4 months. Maybe 5. I lost track after the first few weeks. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, savoring its warmth. I had a job, an apartment, a whole life. Then I got sick. Missed too much work. Lost the job. Couldn't pay rent. It happens faster than you'd think. What about family? Mom died when I was 18. Dad, she shrugged. He made it clear I wasn't welcome anymore when I dropped out of college to take care of her. Said I was throwing my life away. Maybe he was right. The food arrived, and Marcus watched as Sophie ate with the careful control of someone who didn't know where her next meal would come from. She didn't inhale it desperately, but she finished every bite, including the garnish. What about you? She asked, surprising him. Why are you alone on Christmas? Marcus found himself talking. Really talking in a way he hadn't in years. He told her about Emma, about the divorce, about building a company that had consumed every relationship he'd ever had. He talked about success that felt like failure and money that couldn't buy what he actually wanted. You know what's funny? Sophie said when he finished. 6 months ago, I would have looked at someone like you and thought you had it all figured out. Now I realize we're all just trying to figure out where we belong. They talked for 2 hours. The waitress refilled their coffee 3 times, smiling at them like they were old friends catching up. Sophie told him about her dreams of becoming a teacher, about the children's books she used to read at the library during story time, about wanting to matter to someone. Marcus told her about the son he'd always wanted, about his fear that Emma would grow up and realize she didn't need him at all, about lying awake at night in a too-big apartment wondering what the point of any of it was. When the check came, Marcus paid it, then did something he'd never done before. Can I ask you something? And please feel free to say no. Sophie looked wary again. What? I have a guest room. Actually, I have 3. They're never used. It's warm, it's safe, and I promise you, there are no strings attached. He struggled for the right words. Just stay for 1 night. It's Christmas. No one should sleep outside on Christmas. Why would you do that? You don't know me. I could rob you. You could try, Marcus smiled slightly, but my security system cost more than most cars. And I'm doing it because tonight, you're the first person in a very long time who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank, account, or a business opportunity. That's worth more than you know. Sophie bit her lip, and Marcus could see her pride warring with her desperation. Finally, she nodded. Just 1 night. The apartment shocked her into silence. Marcus watched her take in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art, the kitchen that looked like it had never been used. This is where you live, she whispered. Alone? Yes. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. He showed her to the guest room, gave her fresh towels and clothes his ex-wife had left behind. The bathroom's through there. Take as long as you want. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. An hour later, she emerged in borrowed sweatpants and a sweater, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Marcus had made hot chocolate, a skill he'd learned when Emma was little and had suddenly remembered. They sat on opposite ends of his enormous couch, and Sophie asked to hear about his daughter. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her pictures, telling her stories. Emma at her 8th grade graduation. Emma playing soccer. Emma laughing at something outside the frame. You love her so much, Sophie said softly. She has to know that. Does she? I missed her birthday last year because of a board meeting. I forgot to call her on her first day of high school. I'm her father, but her stepfather is the one who's actually there. So change it. You're acting like it's too late. But you're sitting here breathing, which means it's not too late. Call her tomorrow. Tell her exactly what you told me tonight. She won't want to hear it. How do you know? Have you tried? Sophie leaned forward, her eyes intense. You gave me somewhere warm to sleep tonight. You treated me like I was worth something when the whole world looks through me like I'm invisible. You have so much capacity for kindness, but you're hoarding it like it's going to run out. It won't. Kindness multiplies when you give it away. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for years. I'm scared, he admitted. What if I try and it's not enough? What if I've already lost her? Then at least you'll know. But sitting here alone in this beautiful prison, convincing yourself you don't deserve connection, That's no way to live, trust me. I've been at rock bottom. You might have money, and I might have nothing. But we're both just lonely people afraid we don't matter to anyone. The difference is you still have time to fix it. They talked until 2 in the morning. Then Sophie stood, yawning. Thank you, she said. For dinner. For this. For seeing me. Thank you, Marcus replied. For the same. Christmas morning arrived with pale winter light. Marcus woke early, surprised he'd slept at all. He made coffee and found Sophie already awake, looking out at the city below. I need to tell you something, Marcus said. I don't want you to go back to the streets. I'd like to help you if you'll let me, not as charity, but as I don't know what we are. Friends, maybe. Sophie turned to him. I can't take your money. I'm not offering money. I'm offering an opportunity. My company has a new initiative for workforce development. We help people get training and certifications, then we hire them. You'd have to work for it, but you'd have a real chance. And until you get on your feet, you can stay here. Just until you're ready. Why would you do this? Because last night you reminded me what matters. You gave me the courage to call my daughter, which I'm going to do as soon as it's a reasonable hour in Seattle. And because everyone deserves a chance to matter to someone. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll let someone help you for once. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Marcus called Emma at 9 o'clock. His hands shook as he dialed. When she answered, her voice was cautious. Dad? Hi, sweetheart. I know you're with your mom, and I don't want to interrupt your Christmas. I just needed to tell you something. I love you. I've done a terrible job of showing it, but I love you more than anything in this world, and I want to do better. I want to be the father you deserve. If you'll give me another chance. There was a long pause. Then Emma's voice, thick with emotion. I thought you didn't care anymore. I care so much it terrifies me. That's not an excuse for being absent, but it's the truth. Can we try again? Can I fly out next week? I'll clear my schedule. We can do whatever you want. Really? Really, I promise. They talked for an hour. Emma told him about school, about her friends, about the boy she liked but was too nervous to talk to. Marcus listened, really listened, and felt the ice around his heart begin to thaw. When he hung up, Sophie was smiling at him from the kitchen doorway. How'd it go? Better than I dared to hope. He paused. I'm going to Seattle next week. Would you be okay here? Or I could arrange for you to stay somewhere else if... I'll be fine, she interrupted. More than fine. I have a job interview to prepare for, remember? That night, as they ate leftover Chinese food and watched old Christmas movies, Marcus realized something profound. For years, he'd been searching for meaning in acquisitions and market share, in numbers that grew but never satisfied. But meaning was here in this simple act of human connection, in choosing to see someone who was invisible, in being seen himself. Sophie had asked him one question that had changed everything. Can you stay for just one night? He'd thought he was the one offering shelter. But really, they'd rescued each other. She'd reminded him that wealth meant nothing without humanity, and he'd reminded her that her life had value, that she mattered. As the snow fell softly outside, Marcus looked around his apartment and realized it finally felt like a home. Not because of the expensive furniture or the prestigious address, but because for the first time in years he wasn't alone. And more importantly, he'd learned that the cure for loneliness wasn't finding someone to fill the empty spaces, but opening yourself up enough to let someone in. That Christmas, a lonely CEO who had everything learned the greatest lesson of his life. We save ourselves by saving each other. And sometimes, the best gift we can give is simply the gift of being present, of saying yes, of staying for just one night.